nearly fell on me arse. Is it just me? Or do I look like a lion today? I look like a lioness. Hello everyone and welcome back. Today we are going to be talking about all of the books that I read in January. I can't believe that January is already over. I can't believe that it's been 2023 for a whole month. I hope you guys have had a wonderful start to the new year and have been reading some amazing books. I would love to know what books you read in January, so definitely let me know in a comment. And without further delay, I'm just going to get right into talking about the books that I read this month. The first book I started in 2022, at the end of 2022, and I didn't finish it until 2023, and that is Neverwhere by Neil Gaiman. This is also a beautiful edition which is illustrated by Chris Riddell, who is one of my favorite illustrators, and this was such an incredible read. I loved this book so much. I loved the illustrations. It was so inspiring. This is from W.M. Morrow, which is the publisher, if you guys are curious about this edition. But it is gorgeously and insanely illustrated, and it was just such a joy to read because I am an illustrator, if you did not know, and I just found the way that Chris Riddell worked in his illustrations with Neil Gaiman's text was just absolutely incredible. I love how they introduce the book on the back of this edition, so I'll just read it out to you guys. Have you seen this girl? Answers to the name of Doreen. Bites and kicks. Runaway. Tell us if you saw her. Want her back. Reward paid. So it's about these two Londons. We have London above, which is normal London, and then we have London below, which is a fantastical London. It's about our main character, who is a normal everyday guy, Richard Mayhew, who accidentally discovers someone from London below and ends up kind of entangled in this adventure and all the mishaps and craziness that goes on, and discovering this London below, and how he doesn't really feel like he belongs in London above in certain ways, but how he also doesn't belong in London below either, and how he gets intertwined into the character's story and ends up becoming a part of London below in a way. I don't want to say too much because it was so wonderful and enchanting and exciting to learn about this world as you read the book. Neil Gaiman's writing is some of my favorite writing absolutely ever, and just the way that he world builds, the way that he creates characters and situations is so incredibly clever and so unique that I feel like you don't really have to know too much going into his books. I think it's exciting to be pleasantly surprised, and his writing is just unlike any other. I did listen partially to the audiobook as well because Neil Gaiman narrates it himself, and he does such a phenomenal job narrating his own stories, and his voice, I could listen to his voice all day long. The way that he creates different accents and different tones in his voice for the different characters, it's just an absolute performance, and I love it so much. So I highly recommend reading Neverwhere or any Neil Gaiman books. I love him so much, and I've been doing a lot of Neil Gaiman reading recently, which you will see because I have another Neil Gaiman book to tell you guys about. So that's Neverwhere. Love it so much. An incredible read. The next book that I read in January was a book that I actually got from a subscriber who sent it to my P.O. box, and that is A Walk in the Woods by Bill Bryson. As soon as I got this book in the mail in my P.O. box, I was so excited because I really miss reading nonfiction, especially nonfiction surrounding nature and walking, and this is Bill Bryson's experience walking the Appalachian Trail, and I loved this book. I thought it was so great. Bill Bryson is really comedic and funny, and he takes the hard parts and the difficult aspects of doing this, but he made it funny, and he brought so much humor to it and light to it, and it was just wonderful learning about his experience and reading his experience walking the Appalachian Trail. I really loved how he wrote about the scenery and the environment and just how he described his surroundings, as well as his friendship with Stephen Katz, who is the man or the person that he did a lot of his walking with, and they are both very different people. They had very different approaches to walking the Appalachian Trail, and I really enjoyed following their banter and their friendship, and it was just a really nice aspect of the story that I really liked that I wasn't expecting, because I was just expecting this to be kind of him reflecting on just the environment and nature in general, but it's really about his experience emotionally and physically doing this walk, and also his friendship with this man, Stephen Katz. So I really enjoyed that so much, and I thought it was a great nonfiction book. So if you're interested in nonfiction surrounding walking or trail walking, nature walking, and just nonfiction surrounding nature, I highly recommend A Walk in the Woods. I thought it was wonderful. So thank you so much, Hope, for sending this to me. I really, really, really enjoyed it, obviously, as I just said. And we have another Neil Gaiman. I told you guys we have more Neil Gaiman. The next Neil Gaiman book I read was Fortunately the Milk, and this is also illustrated by Chris Riddell. I have this whole box set right here, which is a box set of 3 books. It is the Graveyard Book, Fortunately the Milk, and Coraline, and they are all illustrated by Chris Riddell. They came, like I said, in a box set, which was really nice. I really want to read the Graveyard Book soon, but I also want to space them out as well. I don't want to read all of Neil Gaiman books in one go and have nothing left, although he has written quite a lot, so I don't think that would be for a while. Anyway, so we are going to be talking about Fortunately the Milk, which I really enjoyed. It was very quirky and cute and clever, and just the storyline in general I thought was really sweet and funny. The way that they explain it on the back is really cute. So it says, "Mom's away, Dad's in charge, there's no milk. So Dad saves the day by going to buy some. Really, that's all that happens. Very boring. Yawn. There are absolutely definitely none of the following things inside: globby green aliens, intergalactic police, pirates, angry volcano gods demanding human sacrifice, and most definitely not a time-traveling hot air balloon piloted by the brilliant Professor Stegg." And so this is about this father who, the mother goes away on a trip, and the father has to go get milk because they ran out of milk for his kids' cereal. So while he's gone, the kids are wondering where he went because it's been a few hours, it's been a while, they're wondering where did Dad go, and then the father comes back, and it's all about his crazy adventure that he goes on. He gets the milk, and then just really fantastical, wacky, crazy things happen to him, and the kids don't know if he's making it up, if he's just telling them a silly story, or if it actually happened. I just found it so clever, and why it's called Fortunately the Milk is that the whole time he's trying to hold on to the milk. So he keeps saying, "Fortunately the milk," you know, ... Is it my favorite Neil Gaiman book? Probably not, but I just think it's really clever, and I enjoyed the reading process of it, especially because I'm in the process of writing a middle grade story, and this is more for a younger audience as well, and so it was nice to see, because Neverwhere, I believe, is an adult book. It is an adult book, and so it's nice to see how he takes different genres and the way that he writes for certain audiences, which I really liked. So yes, Neil Gaiman again. He's great. Love him so much. Definitely recommend reading some Neil Gaiman if you haven't. I do think Neverwhere would be a great place to start if you've never read any Neil Gaiman, or Coraline. Even though it's not Halloween anymore, I feel like it's always a good time to read Coraline. Ocean at the End of the Lane is great as well. Ooh, Stardust is also great. But yes, I really want to read The Graveyard Book as my next Neil Gaiman, but I don't know when that will be. The next book that I read in January is Philip Pullman's The Subtle Knife. This is an Everyman's Library edition, which is so absolutely beautiful. And I started this book last year in 2022. I think last winter I read this book. I read the first book, The Northern Lights, and then I just read The Subtle Knife, which is the second book in the series, and this is a bind-up of all 3 novels. So it's The Northern Lights, The Subtle Knife, and The Amber Spyglass. The Amber Spyglass is the only one that I haven't read, obviously because it's the 3rd one, so I just finished reading the 2nd one, The Subtle Knife, and I loved it. I wish I grew up with this story because I feel like my younger self would have loved it so much, but my 24-year-old self also really loves it so much. And it's the 2nd book in the series, so I don't want to say too much, but how do I even describe this book? Oh my gosh. I think I might just read the inside jacket because I don't know why I feel like I won't be able to explain this book properly. So in The Northern Lights, we are introduced to Lyra, an orphan who lives in a parallel universe in which science, theology, and magic are intertwined. Lyra's search for a kidnapped friend uncovers a sinister plot involving stolen children and turns into a quest to understand a mysterious phenomenon called dust. And it keeps going on to The Subtle Knife and then The Amber Spyglass, but I don't want to say anything else because I don't want to spoil anything. The epic story Pullman tells is not only a spellbinding adventure featuring armored polar bears, magical devices, witches, and demons, it is also an audacious and profound reimagining of Milton's Paradise Lost. I did not know that. Oh my god, okay. An utterly entrancing blend of metaphysical speculation and bravura storytelling? Bravura, I don't know if I've ever heard of that term. His Dark Materials is a monumental and enduring achievement. I must say I agree. His writing is incredible. Just the story and the way that he world builds again, and the characters are so fantastic, and it's just such an incredible adventure story, and you are uncovering different mysteries and you're trying to figure out what's going on, and you're rooting for certain characters, and there are so many really greatly written villains and fantastic protagonists. It's just a really phenomenal story, and I am so glad that I am reading it now. Again, feel like I would have loved this years ago, but I also haven't seen the TV show, and I would love to watch the TV show as well, so maybe I should do that. I should do that soon. I think they just came out with the new season, or they're coming out with the new season. But yes, I've heard wonderful things about the show as well, and I obviously highly recommend the book. I thought it was great, and I'm excited to read The Amber Spyglass and then maybe continue on, because I think this series goes on for a little bit. There are other books in this world, like The Book of Dust, and I think Lyra's Oxford. There are like other companion books to this story that are in the same universe. So yes, this is His Dark Materials. Loving it so much. Okay, and then the next book that I read because it is part inspiration for the novel that I'm currently writing. It's a novel that I have loved ever since I was little, and this was like my 500th reread of it, and I loved it so much, and that is Kate DiCamillo's The Miraculous Journey of Edward Tulane. This is also illustrated by Bagram Ibit Tulane, and I love his illustrations so much. They are absolutely beautiful. I will show you one of my very favorites. So this is one of my favorite illustrations. I love it so much. So we have on the chapter pages, like the chapter headings, we have a graphite illustration, and then we have half-page spread illustrations, which are colored, and they are so absolutely beautiful. Oh, like look at that one. So gorgeous. I just love how he renders. Oh, so beautiful. Those colors are just so gorgeous. So anyway, I will tell you what this book is about. This book is about a China rabbit who is a doll, and he is kind of anthropomorphized, like we are listening and hearing his thoughts, and he is alive, but he's not like alive in the way that he moves. He's a doll, but he can think and he can feel, and it's about how in the beginning of the book he doesn't really love anyone. He is loved by the little girl who owns him, but he's very selfish, he's very self-centered, and he doesn't really care about what anybody else thinks and how anybody else feels. And it's about how he goes on this journey meeting a bunch of other people after he gets lost or something happens to him where he ends up leaving the little girl who owns him, and it's about all the different people that meet him and how they affect his life. And it's just such an incredible story, and I've loved it ever since I was little, and there are aspects of this story that I'm really taking inspiration from, and Kate DiCamillo's writing is absolutely incredible, and I love the illustrations, and just everything about this story is so great. If you've never read any Kate DiCamillo, I highly recommend reading this book or starting with this one, or Because of Winn-Dixie, or The Tale of Despero, or The Tiger Rising, or any of her books, because they're all amazing. But yes, The Miraculous Journey of Edward Tulane holds an incredibly special place in my heart because I have loved it literally forever, and this was a wonderful reread for the millionth time. And then the next book you guys have heard me talk about quite a lot recently, and that is A Farewell to Arms by Ernest Hemingway. I won't say too much about this book because I did film a whole entire reading vlog surrounding this book because we are reading it for the Game of Tomes book club that I'm hosting with Emma. We are so excited. especially for the live show at the end of February. I still have to read Once There Was a War, but that is February's book club pick. I loved A Farewell to Arms. This was my first reread. I fell in love with this book in 2018, I believe, and it became my introduction to Ernest Hemingway, and it resulted in me absolutely loving his writing and falling in love with Hemingway. I have a whole stack of his books, and I love his writing so much. And I loved hearing about how you guys felt about the book and hearing your thoughts. I loved it. It was a fantastic reread. I think I loved it even more on the reread. Something that I didn't mention that I ended up accidentally cutting out of my vlog because I was looking for one particular part and I realized I didn't put it in. Silly me. One of my favorite aspects of this book and one of my favorite characters is Rinaldi, who is the roommate and friend of our main character, Frederick Henry. Rinaldi is an Italian surgeon, and I just love him so much. He always calls Frederick Henry baby, and he like kisses him, and he's so affectionate, and it's just because he is like that typical quintessential Italian. And one of you guys commented on my vlog saying that you were really confused about him always calling him baby and how he was so affectionate, and then your husband, I think, told you to read it in an Italian mafia voice, and then it completely changed your perspective of the character. I think that is so funny because that's exactly how I read Rinaldi, is I give him this really strong Italian accent and these very Italian mannerisms and everything. So I love Rinaldi. Something else that I do want to mention as well is that you guys were commenting on my vlog about the only thing that you had an issue with was how kind of unbelievable the love story was between Frederick and Catherine, and I completely agree, to be honest. It really doesn't feel like their relationship develops. It's just kind of like attraction, initial attraction, and then they sort of just go from there. I understand what you guys were talking about, where it sort of felt a little unbelievable and then you had a hard time connecting to their relationship. So I completely get that. I don't want to say too much. I'm going to save it for the live show, but I did want to mention that because I also didn't mention that in my reading vlog. But yes, so that is A Farewell to Arms. I love it. If you haven't read Hemingway and you want to start reading Hemingway, I recommend either starting with A Farewell to Arms, which is my favorite of his fictional works, or A Movable Feast, which is his nonfiction about his time in Paris. So yes. Love it so much. Then the last book that I read in January, I actually don't have a copy of because I listened to the audiobook, and that is Prince Caspian by C.S. Lewis in the Narnia series, which I do have the first Narnia book, so I can show you guys that. So this is the first one, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. I recently did a video and an Instagram reel about my favorite book dedications, and one of them is the dedication in this book, and it really made me want to continue reading the series. I have only read this book, which is The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. I haven't read any of the other books in this series, and I thought that it would be really fun to do that, but I didn't have any physically, and so I decided to listen to the audiobook. I listened to all of my audiobooks on the app Libby, which is free through my library. I thought that it was great. I thought the narration was wonderful. I really loved the story. I have seen the Prince Caspian movie with Ben Barnes, so I did know of the story. I am quite familiar with the story, but other than that one, I don't think I know what else happens in the Narnia books. So it was really nice. I love the way that C.S. Lewis writes. I think that he's a fantastic writer. I thought that he wove the two stories really well because Narnia and Prince Caspian do have quite a big time jump in between each two, because there is sort of like a time travel kind of element to it, and I thought that the way that he wove those together was really seamless and really nice, and he is just such an incredible storyteller. And again, it's more for a younger audience, so recently I've been trying to look into different ways of how different writers write for the particular age bracket that I'm interested in. I have been loving reading some more middle grade books for younger readers, but I am also very excited for what I'm going to be reading in February. I don't really know what I'm going to be reading in February. Oh, that reminds me. I can tell you guys about the book that I'm currently reading, but it's in my bedroom, so let me go get it. Okay, here it is. It is Norwegian Wood by Haruki Murakami. This is my first Murakami book. I'm so excited to finally be reading it because I've been wanting to read it for so long, and I've heard amazing things about Murakami's books. So I am 110 pages in. I am on chapter 5, and I'm still trying to piece together the story, obviously, and I don't really know how I feel about our main character yet. I think his name is Toru. Yes, Toru Watanabe, and it's this coming of age story where in the beginning he's, I think, 37? Yes, the first 4 words are, I was 37 then. So he is reflecting on the time when he was at university, when he was younger, and the different people that he was friends with and his relationships, and it's this coming of age story about our main character Toru, who is just trying to go through young adulthood and what comes with that. I don't really know how I feel about Toru. I just feel like Murakami's writing Toru so well that even though he is our narrator and it's in first person, I still kind of feel like there's a wall between me and him. Sort of feel like it's purposeful. He had to put up this wall because of what happens to him. I don't know, I could be completely wrong. I'm loving it, so I can't wait to keep reading it and to eventually read more Murakami books. But I'm so happy to finally be reading this and to be able to say that I am enjoying it very much. So yes, that is Norwegian Wood. So these are all the books that I read in January and then the book that I'm reading in February. It was such a wonderful reading month. I feel like the more that I read, the more that I understand myself as a reader and the more that I know my reading taste. Like, I don't often read books that I don't like. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I think it's a good thing. I mean, I'm not complaining. I don't really want to read books that I don't like. But it's interesting because I just think I understand my taste quite well, and I think I'm more adventurous when I listen to audiobooks because I don't own them physically and I can take a chance with an audiobook, whereas when I buy a book physically, I usually have a pretty good idea if I'm going to like it or not. If I'm unsure about a book, usually I will try to see if there's an audio version and I'll listen to the audio version first. I always want to make sure that I am at least 50% likely to enjoy the book. So yes, let me know how you feel about that. Do you have a really good idea of your reading taste, or are you more adventurous and you try different things? Let me know. I'm interested now that I think about it. Anyway, so those are all the books that I read in January. I hope that you enjoyed hearing me talk about them. I would love to know what you think of them, if you've read any of them, and what you're reading in February maybe. Again, I don't really know what I'm reading in February. So anyway, I hope that you enjoyed. I hope you're having a wonderful end of January, beginning of February, and I will see you soon in another video. Happy reading.